Hello and welcome to Inside the Castle, Edinburgh Rugby's official podcast brought to you and powered by Fourth One. A big thanks as always to Keith at the Well Podcast Studio for putting the show on for us and recording it, making this possible. And as we know, Edinburgh players are currently furlonged, so Dino is not with me, but I am delighted to say that I'm joined by Edinburgh Rugby's head coach, Richard Cockerill. Cockers, how are you?
I'm very well, mate. Yourself? It's good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Although it's always strange, these Zoom, I've done, God knows how many podcasts I've done now since I've been in lockdown, but if this is the way it's got to be, we just crack on, eh?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, as an old man, I'm learning new things all the time with Zoom and Teams and all sorts of ways of meeting people that I'd never thought I'd have to learn.
It's something. I mean, this technology's obviously been around for ages. I've never used it. Property company, podcasting, whatever. My reach, my clients around the world, my podcast guests. This is going to change how I operate. You know, this is really going to change how I do a lot of business, a lot of everything in life. This availability of people that I just wasn't paying attention to. Is there anything that's happened in lockdown that since pandemics hit that sort of changed the way you are going to operate from now on?
Oh, I much prefer talking to people face to face. I think they're a little bit more scared of me if I talk to them face to face. But no, I mean, it's been good. It's just been good with catching up with other coaches and just, you know, using the time to get hold of your contacts that you've sort of made up over the years and never really had the time or the inclination to catch up. So I've been sort of reaching out to various coaches and former players and just catching up and just chatting to people about the game and how they're managing stuff and just getting different ideas and different perspectives and obviously at times catching up with members of staff on occasion.
Yeah, and how regularly are you doing that? Is that a daily basis? You keep in touch with the squad and the coaches?
Oh, not really. Look, every week we, you know, with the staff that are still working, we catch up over the phone and just make sure everybody's all right. And medically, we're just keeping, in touch with the players, making sure everything's okay with, you know, families and, you know, there's pregnant wives and girlfriends and kids and all that sort of stuff. Just making sure, just touching base and just trying to keep everybody informed around what's going to happen next, which is obviously a little bit uncertain at the moment, but everybody's, you know, trying as hard as they can to do whatever they can.
I want to get into it. I'm going to get straight to it. We had Stevie Laurie on the podcast while in lockdown, and he was straight into Dad's army. He was giving it big licks that he's big on the bench press. Do you want to retaliate? What's Stevie like in the gym, and what's that sort of the chat like around the gym with the other coaches and things like that?
Yeah, look, every Friday morning before captain's run, the coaches come in early, and we have it started off just a little bit of fat burn, and then one of the boys sort of watched us train and said, "Look, is that sort of Dad's army? Is that?" And that's sort of how the nickname started. And then it started as sort of half an hour's worth of fitness and just getting a bit of a blow on and just, you know, a bit of camaraderie with the coaches and a bit of banter, and then that half an hour's now turned into an hour. That's turned into an hour and 10, and every time we train, it's just, this is going to be the hardest session ever. So a bit of CrossFit, a bit of everything, anything that I can do well, we do really. But Stevie, yeah, his nickname's Fat Stevie. So you take from that whatever you wish.
Fat Stevie, he will not like that. He will not like that at all. He said that you caught him cheating at one point. Was that in the rowing machine or something? Did you have a wee go at him at one point?
Yeah, probably early days. We were doing something where we had to set the meters and count down, and he just got on the bike and just rode up to 300 rather than cycling down. And I said, mate, like, you either do it properly, you don't do it properly. And it was like, yeah, it's a bit of a laugh. I went, no, if you don't want to train properly, don't train. But either do it properly, don't do it. And I could see sort of Duncan Hodge and Callum McRae sort of looking out, going, "Just do it. Like, he's not going to give this one up." So it's just my thing. Like, if we're going to do something, let's do it properly. So, but that's okay. No, Fat Stevie learned his lesson, and now he's towing the line.
That's all good. So Cocker's obviously 3 years in the role now, and if you settled in Edinburgh, let alone Murrayfield and the team, how are you getting on in Edinburgh as a home city?
Yeah, pretty good. It's obviously the family have settled in pretty well. It's a good city. Like, the schools are good. My wife works at a local school, so it's a great place. Enjoy the vibe of the city. We've settled in pretty well. Notwithstanding from the very start that I wasn't too bothered how pretty the city was. It's about the rugby. So I think we've got a good balance. We're enjoying the place, and hopefully the rugby's going in the right direction, which it is to this point.
I'm right in saying your son's playing locally as well?
Yeah, he plays. All the kids are at Watson, so he plays. Last year in the first team, and they won the under-16s Scottish Cup, and this year he's gone up two age groups, and he's playing in the second team at the moment. So he's got to get some grafting over the summer and try and get himself a game in the first team next year.
What are you like standing at the side of the pitch? Are you quite calm and controlled when he's playing, or are you right in there?
No, I've always made the conscious effort to just not get involved. So look, he enjoys the game, and he's his own player, and I don't have any expectation about what he does. He goes and enjoys himself and has a good time, and whatever comes from that comes from it. I've never been that pushy father.
Okay. And what about homeschooling? It leads quite nicely into homeschooling. Are you taking it on, or is your wife, is she in charge?
To be fair to the kids, well, the exams have been cancelled for my son because of the situation. And my daughters are 14 and 13. They're doing it through virtual classroom and all that type of thing with the school. So, look, to be fair, if they asked me, I wouldn't know. So if it's anything to do with rugby or woodwork, I'll be okay. But none of that's on the curriculum at the moment. Okay.
You mentioned you like to see people face to face. You know, not, I don't want to say fear factor, but they've said it. What was it like? What was it like when you came to Edinburgh? What did you feel you had to sort of get into the squad immediately to sort of stamp your authority on what was going to happen and how your tenure at the club was going to kick on?
I'll just set some really simple, basic expectations of how I like things to be done, and the expectations of the quality that we're going to have to be at to improve and get better as individual players and then as a team. So, and to be sure that everybody understood that I was the boss. This is how it was going to work in the first instance. And basically, if you didn't like it particularly, then that was their issue and not mine. So, look, our boys have bought in really well. We've worked really hard. There's been we've had a bit of a roller coaster on occasions from start to where we are now, but that's all part of building a squad. The boys have knuckled down well, and we've got an identity and a culture, a DNA of a club where you can actually probably describe what Edinburgh Rugby Club's about and how we behave and what we do and how we train every day and play. And we've become a respected, credible team in the competition, which is a good starting point. We've got a little way to go yet.
Yeah, and how do you think in the grand scheme of Scottish rugby? I mean, your influence is there in Edinburgh, but it echoes throughout Scottish rugby. You're doing a lot for the Edinburgh players that then filter into the Scottish team. How do you think Scottish rugby's doing it at the moment on its own?
Yeah, look, I think it's pretty strong. Look, I didn't realise what a small population of rugby players Scotland had before I came up here. Look, I'm an Englishman. I just sort of look north, and you sort of go, well, Scotland, yeah, they play rugby. But you don't understand until you hear the tiny pool of players that is available to pick from and develop. So Scotland have got some very good young players. They've got a lot of good players coming through. Got a lot of good senior players that are playing now. So look, I think Edinburgh and Glasgow play slightly differently. I think they've both been coached well over the last 3 years, and I think Glasgow will be the same with Danny Wilson in charge. So I think I think Scotland certainly bat over their average a lot of the time. But we just got to keep working, being consistent, and try and keep that competition for places at pro level and test level as high as possible. So nobody feels comfortable in those positions.
Yeah, and through the culture of Edinburgh, do you let the players lead a lot of the culture side of things and the leadership groups, or does it purely come from you and stripped down, or what does sort of control does Rambo have and things like that?
Yeah, look, at the very start, 3 years ago, it was very much driven by myself because I wanted to set the stall out. I think over time, you learn to trust players and you find out who the senior guys are. That doesn't mean about age. Sometimes that's just about how they behave and how they go about their business. So, we know how to behave. We have good standards, and we know what's acceptable of how we go about our business. And guys like Gilchrist and McInally do that really well. And but everybody across the board understands what we're about. that we're always trying to build more leadership. Guys like Lewis Carmichael, Jamie Ritchie, Bradbury, and Hamish Watson. There's lots of guys there, Ben Toulis. There's lots of guys in our team that know how to drive the environment. My job now, which is good, is just to sort of keep them honest. Really, they know how to be good. They know what it takes. And my job is to just, with those senior guys, is just to make sure I keep them honest around their standards and they do what they say they're going to do.
Yeah, and I know I watched the interview you did recently with the Pro 14, and you talked about the Netflix documentary, The Last Dance. You've been watching that one?
I have indeed, yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to go into Michael Jordon here. One of the quotes and one of the things, I think a clip. You're not on social media or anything like that, are you?
No, there's enough forums for me to get abused, so I just tend to steer away from them.
There was one that went a bit viral today. It was a 2-minute clip of Jordon. It was saying things like he knew how to challenge people when they didn't want to be challenged, just to get the best out of people.
Yeah.
How do you get the best out of your players? How do you there must be times when some of the lads turn up and you can maybe tell the body language isn't quite there, or they're just not in the mood, or they're knackered or something like that. How do you differentiate who needs a rocket, who needs sort of managed and to push them on?
I think some are naturally motivated and they just turn up. There's, like you say, some of the individuals like Pierre Schumann is always motivated and is always at 100% enthusiasm all of the time. Some others just go about their business quite quietly. Some you have to cajole to get them into training. And we've obviously all got different characters. Some are very highly strung and very intense. Some are quite laid back. But as long as once we get to the work parts of our training, whether that be in the gym, whether that be our fitness, whether that be our rugby parts, I expect them to be on it. Callum McRae, the defence coach, is very hard on guys and drives a good standard. So, look, I could jolt them a little bit at times, which means probably some I shout at, some I encourage, some I just remind them, their influence on the rest of the squad if they're not on the money from a training point of view. So a bit of everything, but look, eventually once you drive the standards, and I've driven the standards very hard in that first 18 months probably, the boys know what it is and they know what I want. They know that it works, because from where we started to where we are now, we've made some real improvements. So I think they know what it takes now to get themselves in the right headspace to get ready to play. And also, look, sometimes you have to accept that at training, everybody's not 100% on it all of the time, and that's just the nature of a long season and the attrition of the season. So there's a balance for it, and as I've got to know the players better, you get more of a feel for it. But when we're at work and we need to be on it, the tone of training, the tone of the coaches changes, and the boys generally get on with it pretty well.
You mentioned Shuey there. When he is 100% all the time, I've been told that he's injured quite a few boys at training. Is he a bit of a risk factor in that he's knocking boys left, right and centre all the time?
No, to be honest, I think it's great. Like if it's shoulder on, you don't go half-assed into Shuey, because he'll be shoulder on and a little bit more. So no, he's great for it. He's a great example, and there's other guys in our environment that do the same. But yeah, he's got a smile on his face the whole time. He's always it doesn't matter what you're doing. He's diving on the floor. He's rolling around. Everything is. If you say 50%, that means you say to Skewy 10%, mate, because he is full. He is full of enthusiasm, shall we say? Yeah,
he's there. He's some man. He was our first guest on the pod when we did it, and I'd never met him before. And the hug he gave me when he first met me, it just about crushed me. But what a guy, what a gent, top bloke.
Yeah, good man.
Good man. You mentioned right at the start that you've used Zoom to sort of use your time well, and you've spoken to coaches, friends and things like that. You look at someone like Phil Jackson in The Last Dance. Who have you been reaching out to? Who have you been speaking to that you've maybe just wanted to sort of exchange notes, catch up with while you've been in lockdown?
Quite a few analysts, just talking to analysts about what they do around some of their parts of their game at different clubs. Caught up with Brad Thorne at the Reds. Obviously, I coached him at Leicester for a short period of time, and obviously, look, he's a a World Cup winner. He's a Super Rugby winner, Heineken Cup winner. He's played both codes, Broncos. There isn't anything he hasn't done from a playing point of view. And obviously, he's 2 years into rebuilding the Queensland Reds super team. So there's quite a lot of similarities around what we've been through experience-wise. And so it's just good to catch up because lucky enough to have coached him, like I said, and good to catch up and catching up with guys like Sam Vesty, George Skivington at London Irish, Sam Vesty, who I coached at Leicester, was at Northampton, Chris Boyd as well. So just chewing the fat, just seeing what they do, just good to get hold of people in a different scenario where they're a bit more relaxed to sort of chat about stuff, and we're not competitors, so it's it sort of makes it a bit easier.
Yeah, and what about, have you ever been to any other organisations, maybe in different sports, to the States or anywhere, American football or anything, and as a coach gone into different camps to sort of take bits and pieces from other sports?
Yeah, not a lot, to be fair. I mean, it's from when I first started coaching in 2004, I was pretty much full on with Leicester. You're playing 9 months of the year, you get 2 weeks off, and then you're back into pre-season. So a bit of football while at Leicester, a bit of rugby league, but to be fair, mainly through my own experiences that I've used and seen. I'm quite a visual person. I learn by doing stuff and listening to people, talking to people, watching things, rather than a guy that reads lots of books and does lots of research. It's not really my thing. So no, I haven't done. It's the one thing I probably need to do more of. The difficulty is just getting the time within your working season plus family commitments and everything else to do that. It is one of the most difficult things to fit in, to be fair.
Yeah, sticking with the theme of the Last Dance, Dennis Rodman, obviously that was a player they have to look after. I'm maybe thinking of Toulon here, your time at Toulon. Have you ever had players that maybe ruffle a few feathers, or you might not want to name names, but ruffle a few feathers, you've had to step in, or you've just had to say, that guy just needs a bit of a longer lead. We'll get it off him, we'll get the performance on the pitch, but we just got to manage him?
Look, I think it's a really, basketball's slightly different. Obviously a lot less players and some, pretty impressive individuals in that team. But I think every team should have a framework around it. And even if you've got special individuals, that everybody can be different and they can be special players, but I think you have to fit in within that framework within the team. So there's a certain bit of leeway with certain players in all teams, I'm sure. But when it comes to it, there are certain hard and fast sort of rules and things that you have to toe the line. As you saw in that documentary, Dennis just goes missing for 48 hours, but I know that ends up in several weeks. So it's probably something you couldn't tolerate. Certainly, in my teams anyway. But most of the good players love the game, whatever sport they're playing, and they want to be part of the team as often as they can.
I want to get into the 3 age grade players that have just signed. How has it been sort of looking around the market during COVID and contract negotiations and things like that? Has it been challenging? Obviously more challenging than it would usually be, but particularly for the 3 youngsters, how's it been in the market, and what are you expecting from the three new guys that are coming in?
We like to get our recruitment done pretty early on, so we're planning the whole time. Matt Cornwall as head of rugby operations and the other coaches, we're always looking at recruitment all year round, really. So most of our recruitments was already done before COVID sort of took hold, and we had lockdown, and things obviously escalated quite quickly in that regard. So the stage 3 players from the academy will be more closely aligned with both pro teams, which will help hopefully accelerate development physically and rugby wise. And we're always trying to find the next best Scottish players to come into our system. So we'll keep doing that, but it's getting the right lads in. It's getting the lads that have huge potential to then kick on. I've always said right from the minute I arrived here is that the one reason you can't pick the kid is just because they're Scottish. If they're, well, he's Scottish, but he's not very good, but he's Scottish, so we'll bring him in. That's not the way to keep the quality of local players. You have to get lads that have the potential, have the desire to do it, and obviously a Scottish qualified or born in Scotland, or they're born locally, to come into the system and develop and hopefully be, firstly playing for Edinburgh and being very, very good, and then get the opportunity to go further into the national team.
Well, how often would you speak to Gregor Townsend? How often is there a lot of communication between Edinburgh, Glasgow coaches and what's happening at SRU level or Scotland level?
Yeah, me and Gregor talk on a regular basis for obvious reasons. He's busy as well doing his stuff and going around and making sure that he's prepared for his international windows, and he does obviously a lot of travelling and looking at players and finding how other things work, because he has a bit more time away from the coalface than club coaches do. Interaction with Dave Rennie, pretty limited these 3 years. Just Christmas and New Year.
Is that a handshake and
good luck. No, we have obviously Scott Johnson was heavily involved before leaving, and obviously Jim Mallander's now come. So Jim, we have regular dialogue. Obviously Mark Dodson as the chief exec, and Gregor, talking all the time, and obviously with Danny Wilson when he was forwards coach, and now Peter de Villiers, Steve Tandy. So there's a we're geographically we're all very close, and we ultimately, Gregor and his coaches are going to have the majority of their test team from the 2 pro teams. So it's always good to keep good communication lines. Not Gregor watches all our games, he watches all our players, he watches what they're doing and in lots of detail. So it's always good to get a bit of an outside view of what people think of your game. Yeah,
and you mentioned Jim Mallander there. You must have, when he was at Northampton, were you Leicester? Do you log
ahead? Oh yes, me and him had several. Yes, very fierce rivalry. So yeah, if you'd have said to me, 10 years ago, Jim would be my boss.
You just said what?
I said, that's an interesting one. So no, look, he's got a lot of experience, and he's managed at obviously Premiership level and Test level and national level around age grades and player development. So he'll be a huge asset to the union.
I read an article recently. He's concentrating quite a lot on Super 6, obviously, to try and see the players get that competition up to as close to pro level as we can get it.
Yeah.
You keep an eye. I've been at a few games this season. Stevie Laurie's been there watching. Hodgie's been down. Do you keep an eye on the Super 6 and what's going on?
Yes, look, as best I can. I mean, it's good having guys like Stevie Laurie, who's obviously coached in the Premiership in Scotland and knows the players and knows the system very well. So now I've got 3 very good assistant coaches that are all local men, and they, what I don't know, they educate me on the politics of Scottish club rugby all the time and how that works, and it's good. Super 6 for me has been a positive step forward, and obviously cut short for obvious reasons, but I think it's a good starting point. It's something, whether you love the professional game or hate it, or districts or clubs or anything else, I think the professional game's not going away. We have to keep working on it and make it stronger and deeper. And I think the Super 6 is a good concept that will get stronger and stronger. Obviously, the longer we play it.
Absolutely, fingers crossed, and I just hope we see the players getting fed into the pro ranks that deserve it. It's been exciting. I've been to quite a few games, mainly the Watsonians ones, but the tempo's there, the defence is there, they're running in tries from all over. That's not saying the defences are bad, but attack's been so good.
No, I think it's good. I think it's good for the coaching groups. There's a pathway for coaches to come through and get an opportunity like we've all had at some point in our careers. Same with strength and conditioning coaches and assistant coaches. There's a real pathway there. Obviously Stevie Laurie's come through the club system and now as a professional coach. And there's a lot of quality in Scotland, and as a foreign coach, I suppose, I've got 3 very good Scottish assistant coaches, and I want to keep promoting that and give local guys, local coaches their opportunity to come through and develop and cut their teeth at the sharp end.
I remember that was something you said to me right at the start when we probably met that first time, looking around properties, that you said you want to get the fans, you want to get the community together and make this is our Edinburgh team. It maybe lost a bit of their way. You came in and straight away, that was one of the first things you said to me, that you want to get the city behind the club. And you really sort of feeling that starting to happen now, and obviously wins, the more wins you get, the more people turn up.
Well, I think we're getting bigger crowds, we're getting more sponsorship, we're getting more season ticket holders, better. We've got good corporate setup now at home games. So, and like you say, it comes from the quality of people that go on the field and the quality of the rugby we play, and ultimately winning and losing is important, because people want to support a team that wins for obvious reasons, and obviously when you go to watch your team play, win, lose or draw, you want to sort of walk away going, well, you can identify with what's happening on the field. You can be proud of saying you're an Edinburgh supporter, and you can be proud of mixing with the players and knowing the players and all the things that come with club rugby. So I still think we've got a long way to go, but I think we've had a really good solid start, and nothing happens overnight, and we're building a very solid team on solid foundations that as and when things change and I naturally leave the place because they'll want someone else to come in, there's a real solid foundation and identity of a club that the union can keep and build on again.
Yeah, your time at the club, that's something you mentioned on the Pro 14 interview. You obviously no plans of leaving any time yet, but just to give the fans a bit of reassurance, the ones that listen to the pod, you're here for the foreseeable. You're loving it here, but you don't feel like you've built what you came or done what you came to achieve just as yet.
No, look, I'm enjoying what we're doing, because we're going in the right direction. We get good support from the union, and everybody's trying to push this thing in the right direction as best we can with the budgets that we have. So yeah, we've got a good group of young players. They're developing well, and I want to see the end result, hopefully, which is being at the sharp end as often as we can. We're hopefully, depending on how they look at the leagues, we've qualified for Europe again, so we're back in the big competition for the second time in 3 years, which is good for us, and put ourselves back on the European map again. So look, I'm not a guy that, like I said previously, I'm not a guy that looks ahead too far. I just want to make sure we get the here and now right. Obviously, a bit of planning and succession planning for the future around players and building this squad. But you've got to be committed. If I'm asking it from the players and the staff and everybody else, then the person that leads it has got to live those values as well.
Mm-hmm. What is it like as a coach? We've got some young talent. If we look at guys like Darcy, Blair, and there's many throughout the squad. We looked at Glasgow. Teams sometimes come in cycles, all that sort of stuff. Looking to the future and planning for things like that, you're obviously bringing in some age grade players and really thinking to the future there. But is that a worry? Obviously these players that we've got, they're becoming superstars. They're shoe-ins in Scotland teams and things like that. How do you look to the future as a coach, just to sort of protect as much as you can?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. I think firstly, you create an environment that they can get as good as they can in. They don't need to leave to get to fulfil their potential, which I think we're certainly doing. And look, ultimately, it's just creating an environment where they're happy and they're playing their rugby, and they feel that they can, they're good enough to win the league, they're good enough to compete in Europe, which we're slowly getting there. Certainly Europe last year, getting to quarterfinals and beating some big teams and just falling short against Munster. But ultimately, it comes down to budget and being able to compete, and that's ultimately professional sport is around money, and money talks. Whether that will change over the next year or so because of what the current situation we're in with COVID, we'll have to see. But it's always going to be tough to keep everybody at the club with the current financial clout of teams in England and France and Japan, and we're a small country competing in a massive world market, so it's always tough.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Cockerill's your own career. There's a certain game back in 1998. I think you played England versus Scotland at Murrayfield.
Yes, probably. Yes, I did. I think, yes.
I think it's on your Wikipedia page, so I'm going
Is
for it.
it? Okay.
Yeah, it's there. Any memories? Probably not then.
We won.
Yeah, you did.
And we weren't very popular. Yeah, no, I mean, I've played at Murrayfield a few times, played for the Barbarians a couple of times against Scotland, played in the game where Jonah Lomu ran around everybody a few times and scored 3 or 4 tries. So, no, I've got relatively happy memories of Murrayfield as a player, and mostly happy memories as a coach so far. So, no, I'm pretty happy playing there.
What was that like in the Barbarian squad with Lomu? Had you played against him? Had he been in the All Black squad? He would have been, yeah.
Yeah, no, I played against him a few times, but playing with him, it's so much better playing with him than against him.
Imagine.
But yeah, just that day was just like, we had a great team of rock stars really, and he just got the ball. It was just, I've never seen. And it's a long time ago now, isn't it? You know, it's 20 odd years ago. You sort of the size of the man, 125 kilos, the way he moved and ran and had the skill set, and yeah, it's just a freak. Like, he'd be a freak today, never mind 20 odd years ago. And you almost felt sorry for the Scottish backs, who were literally half the size of it.
There've been a lot of your man calls and touch and all that stuff.
Yeah, no, well, I always sort of think, you know, when you get the odd ex-player that sort of criticises what you do as a club, and I always sort of think, well, any time that anybody criticises me, I'll just show them the clips of them playing against Jonah, and then we'll see if they've got too much to say for themselves.
That's it. You say there, obviously, and I agree with you that Jonah is a player that he was a phenomenon when he played, but he could probably play in today's game. Do you reckon you could hold up a front row these days? You could do a shift if you're the player you were back then, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think it's really hard to compare eras. I'm not sure I'd be good enough skill-wise. I think I'd have the competitiveness, but I'm not sure with the way people are cited and yellow cards get given out these days, and the way the game is officiated, that my skill set would be. I'm not sure my skill set would be appreciated too much.
Yeah, and as a player, when you were at Leicester, obviously Martin Johnson, Neil Back, guys like that, yourself, what was that era like for you? What was that like on and off the pitch, being around those guys and the culture you created there?
Yeah, just great fun, really. Like, I joined in '92, and that group of young players sort of all came together at the same time. Myself, Roundtree, Garforth, you know, Martin Johnson. Obviously, the Neil Back had arrived the year before from Nottingham. Got guys like John Wells, Dean Richards was pretty influential in that team at that time. So it was amateur. Like, we just had fun. It was Tuesday, Thursday night training, play Saturday, and drink as much beer as possible on Saturday night, and back to work Monday. So it was just great fun, and that turns into good relationships, and we thought we were a half decent team, and we developed into it took us 3 or 4 years to become to win the championship, but we then became a force for that 4 or 5 years under Dean Richards, Bob Dwyer, then Dean Richards.
Yeah, and what was Martin Johnson like, just as a leader? Obviously, you know him so well, but characteristics that from leadership wise that you can take into coaching, that you still remember little things that he did, or did he concentrate on the small things and they always took care of themselves?
Yeah, just his work ethic. He worked really hard. He was one of the boys. He was a guy that did every weight session, did every rugby session. There wasn't, just because he was a senior player, and he was in the middle of doing what he did in his rugby career. But even whether he was a British Lion or England captain or whatever it may be, he was there on Monday morning training. Played a test match on Saturday, he's there Monday training. There was no middle ground with John A. Worked really hard. If you messed up, he told you. If it was his fault, he'd stick his hand up and go, "Yeah, my fault. Let's do it again." And just led by example. And he was tough and he was bloody minded. And it's sort of just we had a few guys like that. Garforth, Back, Dean Richards, all pretty much the same. We had a very no nonsense set of forwards. it served us well in that era.
Now, a wee while ago now, Neil Back obviously did a bit of coaching at Edinburgh. Did he get a call when this opportunity came up from you? Did you discuss it with him?
No, not really. I mean, I always like to see things on their own merits, and people have different experiences at different places. So no, I didn't speak to too many people because I wanted to listen to what was being said and what the plans were, where Edinburgh were to where they wanted to go to. So now most of my decision making was around the opportunity of coming up and doing something very different for me, which was building a team from a relatively low position rather than just having to maintain standards or winning standards at Leicester and obviously Toulon for a short period.
Okay. Now, the guys in the media team at Edinburgh, they always send out a few posts on Instagram and Twitter asking for questions for guests. So a couple of questions came in from you. Nothing too bad. The best hooker you've ever played against? Who would you say was the best hooker?
A difficult one. Probably my first memories of playing against a really tough individual was Graham Dorr at Bath. He was a Cornish farmer who played for Bath for forever. He taught me a lot of things. I was a youngster, and I was probably in my early 20s. He was probably in his early 30s, and he was one tough man, one tough individual that taught me a lot of things about the game, because I thought I was the boy at 21, 22. When you go to the Rec on a muddy afternoon, you got sort of Dorr and Chilcott against you. You learn a few things. So that was probably my first memories around Graham Dorr, and he was probably one of the toughest, physically one of the hardest men I've played against. But when you get to test level, they're all very good players, and the game's so different and fast that you sort of you just get on with concentrating on playing the game, really.
Mm-hmm. I said to Stuart Rutherford, I probably wouldn't throw it in, but I'm going to, because...
Mate, ask me whatever you want, mate. It's not a problem.
I'm going to. What was the first scrum like against Norm Hewitt after you were face to face with him? What was that first scrum time like?
Yeah, no, it was. It was a good afternoon of rugby. That was. Yeah, I mean, it was. Yeah, something that happened. I'm not sure how it happened, but it was just the whole battle. Like they were very, very physical. There were first opportunities for me and to play against the All Blacks. It was my first start on home soil, and at that level, you're just in the battle the whole time. You're playing for your country, ambition of a lifetime to be in that environment and playing, and you do anything for your team at that point. I mean, we lost that game, and then the thing is, we had to play them the next week as well at Twickenham. So. It was feisty, to say the least.
I can imagine. It looked awesome. The pictures still travel around social media and all sorts of things. So
it's good fun. It's rugby, it's sport. It's what it's about. It's about enjoying yourself. It's it can get a little bit sterile in the modern game, can't it? For obvious reasons.
In the spirit of enjoying myself, did you hear the prank call that we did on Fraser McKenzie?
Yes, I did. Yeah, no, the boys they sent that round. It was. It was very amusing. It was very Fraz, actually.
Yeah. So that was a question that came in. Is anyone in the squad or anyone in previous teams ever tried to prank you or got one over on you?
No, not really. They tend to ignore me, really. Okay. So, players don't really ring me unless they're in trouble.
Okay.
That tends to be the case. But, they only get to call me if they are really in deep trouble and they need some help.
Okay. You're the shoulder to turn to. Is that the shoulder to cry on, maybe, or?
No, they just know that if they front up early doors, that I'll look after them, and they just might as well. They might as well fess up early doors, because I'll find out eventually.
What sport how do you shut off? Do you ever shut off from rugby? What sports do you follow, or what do you do to take your mind off rugby?
To be fair, it's an interesting one. A lot of people say the same thing, because the difficulty with I suppose a lot of professional guys that have been amateurs is that I played rugby to enjoy myself. Rugby was my social life, because I worked a week and played rugby at the weekends. So that was my hobby, and then suddenly your hobby becomes your job. It becomes all encompassing. So look, I'm pretty much thinking about rugby most of the time. I like to get out. I like to exercise. I like to do, CrossFit, and I've got a watt bike at home, and I've got a road bike. I like to get out on the roads and get some miles in. But generally, look, I just, I think if you're going to be good at what you do, you have to be passionate about it, and rugby's my thing. So, it's pretty boring, really, isn't it? I've got no.
It's probably what the fans want to hear. It's probably what everyone wants to hear. That's your thing. So no, we're happy with that. We're happy with that. How closely are you going to be watching Super Rugby? Obviously, there's been chat and it's been announced that in New Zealand there's going to be some games played probably from June, July onwards. You, and along with the SRU and everybody, probably be watching how that's going to unfold.
Yeah, look, it's if they start playing, it'll be interesting to see how they manage it around, playing behind closed doors, how that works from a health and safety point of view. So it will be interesting to want to watch the rugby for starters, but also to see how the whole thing gets off the ground, and is it sustainable, and hoping that we can get control of the virus, and we can all start to slowly get back to training and then contact training, and hopefully we can start to get back to some proper rugby in whatever guise we can, behind closed doors or small gatherings or small crowds and all that sort of thing. So let's see where we get to with it.
How long do you think you'd need to get your squad in shape, to get the match ready?
Probably 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks in a perfect world. But look, I think we just got to go with whatever comes. I know there's you have to think about player welfare and everything, all that type of thing, and it's all very important, and I agree with it all. But we've got to get the game up and running. We've got to get back training as soon as it's safe to do so, and it may well not be a perfect scenario when that happens, and we've got to adjust to it and make sure we get on with it and support it and make it work.
Well, making it work. How hard? You've played in front of huge crowds. I mean, it'd be like training matches and with no crowds in the stadium behind closed doors. Does that excite you a bit? Does it take the pressure off the players a little bit? Or what would that environment be like for the players on the pitch, just with empty stadiums but so much on the line?
Yeah, a little bit odd. I mean, I know there's been a lot of banter around it. Won't make any difference to Edinburgh because we play, we play with no crowds most of the time in Murrayfield, the cheeky sods. So, no, I think look, we'll just get on with it. I think we've got a pretty good mindset to getting the job done when we play. And players have just, we've got to use it to our advantage. If we've got a good mindset and mentally we're strong and tough, and we go through just our process of playing, getting on with it, I think our boys will cope really well. And I think we're going to have to, because I think that's probably going to be where the starting point for all professional rugby in the UK.
Yeah, absolutely. You might have seen at the moment through the media channels, the Edinburgh guys are trying to get an all-stars team sort of through different generations. In the squad so far, I think they're up to the centres. I think WP Nelson, Grant Gilchrist and Hamish Watson. Okay. Chunk is in the front row. You reckon you'd have got on with Chunk as a coach-player relationship, Alan Jacobson?
Yeah, I think we probably would have had a few discussions around his body shape, I reckon. I reckon he would have spent a lot of time on the watt bike and a lot of time not eating carbs. But mate, he's made the most appearances for Edinburgh, full stop. So look, he was some character and some player. So in his era, no problem, suited him down to the ground, and he clearly did a fantastic job. And obviously he's still very much in the forefront of the history of the club, because he's our highest appearance holder. So, but he was a unique shape, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. He was on the podcast, and I think he's probably the most downloaded episode, or the most stories, the most calling out other players and all sorts of stories. He was brilliant.
Yeah, no, he's some character.
Talking about old generations and days gone by, players in the past. I hope we've got this right. The Moncrief Club's now been announced, and do you enjoy seeing more of the older players in the stadium after the games, kicking about and being at Murrayfield supporting the team?
Yeah, no, I think it's huge. I think it's really important that people that have played for the club and have done a lot for the club, sacrificed a lot for the club, both on and off the field, feel that they can come to the games and watch and enjoy it, have a beer, meet up, talk about old times and network and do all those things. I think that's a really important part of any club. Look, I'm not an Edinburgh man. I've never played for the club, but on and off the field, we're trying to make that as hospitable as possible, because look, there's some very, very famous players have played for this club, and we should celebrate that. Test stars, British Lions, and we should use that to our advantage. So, no, I'd encourage anybody that's played for the club, if they don't come down and be part of the old players club and society, and hopefully come and watch some decent rugby and be proud of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. You're here. Well, Cockers, thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And,
no problem.
Hope the family stay fit and healthy, and all the squads stay fit and healthy, and we get back to Murrayfield and get some games in the not so distant future.
Thanks for inviting me on. It's been a pleasure.
Good man. From us, as always, thank you for downloading the pod. Please do give it a share and a review. Keep up to date with everything Edinburgh Rugby at edinburghrugby.org and use the hashtag always Edinburgh. From me, we'll catch you next time.